guys. So, welcome back to Unseen Perspectives. I'm Brie,
And I'm Kaylynn.
and today we're going to be talking about guide dogs and misconceptions on guide dogs because I know that there's a lot of them out there. um, yeah, let's start. Let's get into it because there's a lot. It's crazy because a lot of people don't know, but then when you're blind, you are like, how do people not get it? I don't know, but that's just how it is. Anyway, so first of all, when you're blind, you don't just get a guide dog. You need to be perfect in your cane skills. Um, Kaylee, you want to talk a little bit about why she's a little bit more?
Yeah, all good. So, when you're learning to use a cane, you go through something called orientation and mobility training. And that helps you to understand where you are in space and time and how to navigate through space and time. So, you need to really hone in on those skills before you get a guide dog. I was always told if you can get lost with your cane, you can get lost with a dog 10 times faster.
Yeah.
Because a lot of people have the misconception that the dog just knows where to go.
Oh my god.
And you
Yeah.
can just tell the dog, go find me the bathroom. It's not going to know how to do that. So you're going to need to know where you're going. And
Yeah.
also, you're going to need to know how to ground yourself. Because with a cane, we have certain abilities to feel the context around us that you're not going to get with a guide dog. So, like, one of those things is called shorelining, and that's where you tap a cane, or not a cane, you tap your cane against a wall or a curb or something, and you go back and forth, so that way you can follow it. If you have
Yeah.
a guide dog, you're not going to be able to do that, so you really need to know where you are and then be confident if you don't know where you are and how to find that out based on clues around you without having the physical context from your cane.
Yeah. Like I always do with my cane is I would shoreline with a grass line. And then I would be like, okay, there's an open path. I'm gonna go down this way. I can't do that with the dog. Um it's extremely difficult. You have to know estimate time on your own. That's why you have to be like advanced to get a guide dog. You can't just they don't just give it you the dog. It's like a whole you just have to be good with your O&M skills.
Yes.
Um, it's extremely important. So let's talk a little bit about what you were saying about the dog just doesn't know, like the dog doesn't just know where to go. Like you can't just go, oh, find the restroom, find the restaurant, find, like it just doesn't work that way. So you have to, there's just a bunch of commands. A lot of them are just can't, like I have a guide dog. Her name's Candy, and I say Candy left, Candy right, Candy forward, Candy straight, that kind of thing. That's all she knows. So I have to know, okay, when do I need to turn? When do I need to, keep going forward? That kind of thing. But she has the ability to protect me. So if there's like a curb, like one time she was standing like diagonally in front of me, and I was with a trainer, and I was like, "What is she doing?" And she's like, "Oh, you're like tilted and sort of like facing the curb, like where you're about to step and like probably fall." And she was like guiding it. So that kind of thing. And also with like streets and stuff, um, you have to listen. It's the same thing with your cane. You have to listen with traffic. It's so funny because I know Kayla and I we talk about this sometimes, but I actually was just talking to another friend about it, about how a lot of blind people when they're on the side of the or like at the curb waiting like for the intersection and stuff, that they wait there for a really really long time, and people always think like, oh, she probably needs help, she's probably stuck, whatever. No, that's just us trying to figure it out because we
Yeah.
have to like listen and all that stuff. Same thing with the dog. Like I have to be like, okay, Candy forward, but it's her job to be like, protect me and be like, no, mom, you can't go.
Yeah.
So
So
that
that
kind of thing.
that's called intelligent disobedience, and schools will teach that. So
Yeah.
if you tell the dog go when there's traffic coming, they're not going to do it. However, you can't rely on that, but it is
Right.
something that they teach. Also, like Bree just said, a lot of the time people think we need help, but really what we're doing, and this is a part of orientation and mobility training. So every time you cross a street, there are cycles, and how a blind person is going to know when to go is by listening to the traffic cycle and determining, okay, this is when the left turners turn, right turners, this is when my parallel traffic is going versus my perpendicular. and that is going to help that person determine when it is safe for them to walk. So if a blind person's just standing at a crosswalk, don't immediately assume, especially if it's a big intersection,
Yeah.
that they don't know what they're doing. It's just sometimes we have to listen for a couple traffic cycles to really get the idea of how that specific intersection works.
Yeah. So it's the same thing like with the not the same thing, but it's like the same thing with the cane and the dog. You need to know it's all on you to know when to go. It's not like the dog is like, okay, no traffic, let me go. Like it just doesn't do that. So I want to talk a little bit about how the whole guide dog situation works. So it's a complex, complicated, tedious, long sort of the situation. So it's a whole system. It's a whole formula. It's a whole situation. Anyway, so they have different schools, different guide dog schools all over the country, um, or all over the world, actually, to be honest. And they all offer different things. So, if you're blind and you're looking into guide dogs, some schools you might want, I know Kayla and I were just talking about this. Some schools will pay the vet bill, some will pay the food, some will, some won't. Some won't do that. Some you have to give back. Some stuff like that. Um, yeah. I went to the Seeing Eye. Shout out to the Seeing Eye. I get full 100% ownership after I graduate that school. So if you get accepted to the school, you have to go there for 4 weeks. I think it's the same thing with every school, right? You have to go for 4 weeks.
Some schools are different. Sometimes it's 3 weeks, sometimes it's four. In certain schools, you have to go to the school versus
Yeah.
other schools will do in-home training for certain circumstances.
Yeah. Like I know I was looking into the at home training because Kayla and I, we go to a school that's classes every 4 weeks. So obviously we can't just go to that school in the middle of the school year. So I was looking for them to come down here and train with me. And then I just had like a gut feeling about the Seeing Eye. So I was like, okay, I want to go there. So I went there. And it was actually a really good experience. It was really, really cool. You stay there. They paid for me. They paid for the flight. They give us food. That whole thing. But it's cool because they really, really want you to learn and to understand. And I remember them saying that there's so much information to give someone in 3 to 4 weeks.
And I
Um,
think before even going into the 3 to 4 weeks, we should talk about the process to even get in
that's
to a
true.
school.
That's
Because you
true.
don't just apply and they're like, okay, you're blind. Here's, you get in. Come
That's
on
true.
down.
Come on down.
Like,
No,
normally
it's not like
you
that at
have to
all.
go through multiple interviews. It's a
Yeah.
phone interview, it's a home interview. They normally require you to walk a specific number of routes, so it's different for each
Yeah.
school. How many routes they want you to have, how long each route needs to be, and that kind of depends on the dogs that they breed because each school does have a bit of a different breeding program, even though
Yeah.
I believe some of them collaborate with DNA. So they all expect different things out of you, but they expect to see that before you even get accepted. And
Yeah.
so it's like a big panel decision on like you get a call and it's like you're either denied or accepted.
Yeah.
I have been both denied and accepted to schools, so it's like getting into college basically. You're
Yeah.
waiting for that call to say, "Hey, you got in."
Yeah. And I got accepted to the Seeing Eye, but there was another school that was like, you need to work more on your O&M skills. Because when you get a guide dog, you're advanced, advanced, advanced. Like you need to know what you're doing. But you need to know your orientation. You need to know, like, okay, if like you were saying, it's 10 times harder with a dog. Um, so it's a process. They come down, you phone interviews, they come here, different schools require different things, like you said. Um, Also, one of the things I was looking into with looking into schools was the reinforcement. I was like, okay, I need to the reinforcement and how they reinforce a dog or what they do, negative, positive, I don't know. So that was one of the main things I looked into. And some dogs would use positive reinforcement with, some will do treats, some will, the school I went to, the Seeing I did praise. So whenever she did something, I'd say, good girl, that kind of thing. Some will give them a treat every time. Different schools do different things. There's also, this is a big thing, the correction situation. Um, So at my school, I don't know how it is at different schools, but
Yes,
my
only some schools do corrections.
yeah, I think it's yeah. Anyway, so my school they do leash correction, and it's like okay, my dog did something wrong. I say a word, she still doesn't listen. I had to do a leash correction where I just like pop the leash. It doesn't hurt them. I promise, it doesn't hurt them. It just so they know. Oh shoot, I can't do that. Anywho, reinforcement was a big. There's just a lot of contributions, a lot of components that you need to look into when looking at dogs, guide dogs. Um, yeah. So anyway, you apply, you get in, or you let's say you get in. It has to go through a committee in order to get in, or you don't, you decline. I know Kaylin, you got declined because apparently you can see more.
Yeah, so certain schools will accept you if you're legally blind, and then certain schools require more vision loss than others because when you're legally blind, that means you have some remaining vision left over, and so they kind of have to teach you differently. That way,
Yeah.
you don't interrupt the dog's training. I also wanted to ask, did the seeing eye make you do a video? Because I know a lot of schools, along with coming
No.
down, and like when I did it for both schools, along with going or along with the school coming down to me, like the instructor, I also had to send a video
A video of you
me
doing what?
of me walking a path, one of my routes.
No.
Before they
Why?
would even come down, they made me send a video. So
No.
that again, some schools are different and they're all going to require different things
I mean,
of
that's
you.
weird that they make you do a
Yeah.
video. Like it could be AI. I don't. I mean,
But they
maybe
also
it's
need to
times
do that in
different.
order to see things like how fast you walk, your
Yeah.
height.
Oh yeah, that was one of the big things. And when I had two different schools come down, that was one of the big. There was they like saw how fast you are, and that's the whole part of the matchmaking process with the dog, and that I applied thinking that it was going to be 3 4 years, especially because I'm short. I'm only 4'10". I was like, there's no way that there's going to be guide dogs that are that small and walk as slow as me, that kind of thing. And so I was expecting for a while, and then they called me and they're like, "Oh, we have a match like the same speed, the same power, the same, just totally can walk the same way that I do, the same speed and everything." Um, that's why I knew I was not going to get a German Shepherd. I'm way too small for that. Anyway, so that's a big thing, and sometimes people wait because they can't find a match. And then even when you do find a match, like when I went, they all did really well, but there was one girl, she had to switch dogs because some dogs just can't do it. They train them, and then the what do you the handler, I guess they call him, the blind person comes in and they start training with the dog, and the dog is freaks out and can't do it. Like the girl at the school that I went to, the dog was freaking out. It was like in front of traffic. It was freaking out. Elevators, escalators. It was just so skittish, and obviously that's extremely dangerous. You don't want a dog that's freaking out
And
and it's guiding you.
that's why they can't use just any dog. And so a lot of
Right,
people also think like, okay, a guide dog is just a normal dog.
right.
One of the reasons also that they want to make sure that you are good on your orientation and mobility and why they're so selective with acceptance is because these dogs go through years of training, which we'll talk about in a minute after the exception process.
Yeah.
But these dogs go through years of training and like there are whole DNA databases for guide dogs and how they're breeding them is very specific. They're
Oh my god,
testing
yeah.
from day one to see whether they react to loud noises, how skittish they are, and it's a very selective process for the dog too. Like you said, not every dog even gets through their schooling and is
Yeah.
able to be certified as a guide
Yeah,
dog.
and I remember like when I think I became blind, a lot of people were asking me, "Oh, are you gonna get a guide dog?" And I was just like, "No, we already talked about that." But then my grandma was like, "Oh, because we have a black lab at home," and she's like, "Oh, the training for him is all this stuff," and I was like, "No, like we can't use him. It doesn't work that way. You can't just. I mean, some people you might get a dog and you could train, which Kayla and I we talked about, but usually it's schools they breed them and then that's how it is.
Yeah.
Like I remember them saying, 'cause I was worried about. I've always had labs, just regular pet dogs. And they were their hips get out, and so I was like worried about that. And they're like, "Oh no, we take that DNA part out." And I was like, "What?" I was like,
Oh,
"Oh,
yeah.
that's
They're
crazy."
very selective with their DNA. If
Yeah,
you are
it's
trying to get
crazy.
like German Shepherds, there's a big difference between show line German Shepherds and working line German Shepherds that needs to be taken into consideration. Like,
Yeah.
they take dogs with perfect temperament, everything, and they only breed those dogs
Yeah.
just so that they can come up with, like, the perfect specimen for a
Yeah,
dog
it's
to
crazy. And
work.
that's why I was like so surprised that when I went to the school, Candy is one out of six dogs. And all five of or not five, four of her other siblings were in the same class as me. So the same class is I'm assuming it's like how it is at other schools where there's obviously. Maybe not. I don't know. Anyway, so when I went, that there was five trainers, I think, and then four people for each trainer, or four blind people for each trainer. And so when I went there, it was I remember before I went, my O&M instructor here, just with the cane, was like, "Good luck. It's gonna be brutal." And I was like, "Oh, fun." And they came down here and to do the application. They're like, "Yeah, we got up at 5:30 in the morning," and I was like, "Oh no." And at 5:30 in the morning till pretty much 8 o'clock at night. It was training, lectures. They give lectures. They make you go down. We went downtown a lot, and we did routes. We walked miles. They tell us before, like, be prepared. You're gonna be walking a lot. You're gonna be pulled a lot. All that stuff. Um, but yeah, so they give lectures, a lot of interesting lectures, and like one of them was like, my school, like I said, they praise, they don't give them treats. So they were like, oh, the different senses with dogs, like with the taste, like they're not like, oh, sweet, salty, like ours. It's more like, oh, food. It's very like precise,
Yeah.
so it's very different. So they give a bunch of lectures about that. We had to do like a massage for the
Yep. Hmm.
dogs. I did it with Candy, and I'm like, oh, Candy's like docile. She'll be fine. And then she started like kicking me, and I was like, okay, this is, oh my gosh. But yeah, it's a lot. That's why you need to be advanced. You need to know what you're doing. You need to. I remember so many, like, there was older people there too in my class when I went, and I was like, the first week I was like, my wrist hurts, my back hurts. I was like, how
Yeah.
are you guys doing this? And a lot of them, like, we did like an introduction in the very beginning, like one of the first days, and we went around, said our name, and we had to say what dog like we were having. And so, like, I was like, oh, this is my first dog. Some girl was like, this is my eighth dog. And I was like, oh my gosh, that's like crazy. But anyway,
I
so
did want to mention that not only do you do classes at the school, like you said, massage
yeah.
class and grooming class, all that,
Oh,
but
yeah.
some schools also, when you're looking into schools, some of them will have you do educational training before you even get to the campus. So you
Yeah.
need to pass that. It's like online school, and it goes over anatomy, everything to do
Yeah.
with like taking the dog to the vet, and you will have to pass those online courses in order to go to the school and get the dog.
Do they do the videos and then they go to the school, and do they not do the lectures?
They do lectures as well. At least
Okay.
where I went, like they did lectures,
Yeah.
but they also implemented, like I was already in the program when they implemented this new schooling. But if you were newly coming into the program, I think it was something you had to do to get in, was
Yeah.
pass
I
the
understand.
course. Yeah.
Yeah, we did lectures, and it's a whole day thing. It's a lot, but it's, again, they were saying like there's so much information, and it's a lot to unpack in 4 weeks, 3 to 4 weeks. Where I went to Sing I, it was I don't know if it's like this for all schools, but oh my gosh, it was so emotional. They paid for everything. They paid for the flight. They paid for, all that stuff. So we get there Monday. Everyone gets there Monday. Everyone's settling in, yada yada yada. And they don't give us a dog till Wednesday. So we're all freaking out. We're all like emotional, especially like Tuesday. We were just like, oh my god, it was so rough. So it was a lot because they don't tell us anything. They don't tell us to breed. And I remember before they're like, "Oh, is it a lab?" And I was like, "I have absolutely no idea. I have no idea." Um. Oh, and I was really worried about the name because they name the dog. That's a lot of people think that we just name it. No, they name it. I'm sure you could switch it up a little bit, but it has to be like the same syllables. That's why I'm very happy I got Candy. um, like, I remember before, Kaylynn, of course, is freaking me out. She's like, "Oh, Molly Burke." If you guys don't know who Molly Burke is, she's a big YouTuber. She's blind. You know, check her out if you don't know who she is. Anyway, she has a guide dog, and the guy dog's name is Elton John, and I was like, oh no, that better not be. It better not be like Dolly Parton. I don't know. No. Anywho, do you think she calls it Elton? Do you
I
think she
I
says Elton
think so.
John?
I
That'd be
think so.
weird. Elton John, come here. I
I've
don't
also I've known people though that have had guide dogs with human names, like Debbie and stuff like that, just
know.
like
That's
human
funny.
names, which I think is funny too.
Candy's sister's name was Carol, and I was like, ooh, that's interesting. And another guy in my class, his name was Herb, and I was like, and it's like cool because they give us the dog on Wednesday morning. Like we all have breakfast at 7 in the morning, which was rough. 'Cause I don't get anyway. Um, so we all sit with our groups, our trainers. They talk about it and they're like, okay, after breakfast, everyone, go to your room, and then we'll bring the dog to you. And I was like, I better not be last. I really better not be last. And my mom has a story where I was like going in between FaceTiming Kaylin and my mom and like a bunch of people because I was freaking out. So all I was doing was sitting in my bed. My mom was like, "Oh my gosh!" I guess I call my mom. She tells everyone this, and I was like, "Mom, I'm just sitting on the bed with the leash, just waiting for the dog." Um, and so Wednesday morning they give us the dog. Even the net, actually, this was my first clue. The night before, we were all just hanging out, getting to know each other, just the students there. And my trainer came up to me and she was like, "We're gonna have to change the crate 'cause you have a smaller dog." And I was like, "Ooh, okay, interesting." And they're like, "Okay, when we give you guys the dog, they'll be bathed." It was just really cute. And then we're all in our rooms. They gave us to us separately. They let us have time with our dogs to just hang out. And it was funny 'cause afterwards, I told like a bunch of people, like we were all talking about it. Every single dog like went back to the door to like go with the trainer because they were like they get so attached. Oh my god, this German Shepherd was like so attached to this one trainer. Like when afterwards we went out to like all eat, it was whining the whole time for the trainer. And I was just like, oh, that's interesting. So they just like tell us different things about dogs. Like I learned so much about different breeds of dogs and all that stuff. Um, we get the dog on Wednesday morning, and then I think like the first week we couldn't use like they couldn't guide us in the house. I always feel like we were on like Big Brother because there's like a bunch of us just in one house. Anyway, um, yeah, so it was a cool experience, but that's when um they really I do you think other schools tell you information about the dog or no?
I don't
Or do you think it's a
think
secret the
so.
whole
All of the
time?
ones that I've seen, it's that same like greeting day. They bring it to your
Yeah,
room.
but they didn't
I
tell
didn't.
us anything.
I haven't seen anything different. I
Yeah,
don't
like
know
I
though.
think I don't know. It's just I don't know. Um, so they were also saying like that Monday and Tuesday they're like maybe you'll talk to some other students and you guys will realize they have the same first letter and you'll be like, oh, they're siblings. And that actually happened with me and this other girl who's actually a college student, so that was pretty cool. But we were just talking, like we were downtown and they have like little basement where we all just stay. And then the trainer like takes one by one that whole situation. But we were just sitting, we were talking, and I was like, "Oh, what dog did you get?" And she's like, "Oh, I got a black lab. His name's Chase." And I was like, "Oh, me too. Mine is Candy." And I'm like, "Oh my god, I think they're siblings." And so, like little by little, you sort of like understand like who's siblings. You sort of like match, the dog to other dogs. I don't know. It's that kind of thing. It's really cool though. Um, yeah. So that was cool, and especially because Candy had four other siblings in that class. That was really cool. Um, so I'm assuming it's like, do you think it's like every school where like the whole breed or the whole litter is the same letter? Probably, right?
Again, I know some schools do it that way, and then
I feel
some
like that's so
schools you
smart.
can pay. So she's talking about is the whole litter will have the same
Yeah.
letter. Some schools go off donations, so you can
Yeah.
pay to name a dog a
Yeah.
certain name.
Like
And
my school is like $5,000. You can name a dog, but then I'm like, okay. Then do they go off after that? They name the whole litter with the same. I don't. Who
this is
knows?
an interesting one. So
That is
the
interesting. I don't
school
think
that
we
I
thought about
was
this.
the school that I was applied to, and this is an interesting name. I actually walked with this dog, and I love this dog. But Apple paid, like donated to the school,
Oh
so they
wow.
named the dog Macintosh.
Macintalk?
Macintosh, like
Why
after
would they
the
name it
Mac
that?
book, I think, because it's an Apple related name,
Okay,
and
why didn't
Apple
I
donated.
would think Apple would come up with a better name. Anyway, that's
It's a
interesting.
long name.
Yeah, that's why like usually guide dogs it's like candy, like it's like two syllables or not even. It's because like I remember one girl, her dog's name was Abigail, and I'm like, oof, that's rough. Like saying Abigail for like that's a lot to say because every time you say a command, you have to say their name. So you can just be like left, left, like you have to tell the dog. And the dog can see, and like I don't know if it's like the same thing with other schools too, but like we use like our hand. You guys use like I have to
Mm,
like flick to the left. If I'm gonna go candy left, and I have to flick to the left.
I don't know, but is it the same with all schools where when you say right, you have to go right, right instead of just
That's
right?
like right is like if you're like about to turn right, like suggested right, and then if you're turning directly right, it's right, like
Okay,
right.
because I think the school that I was at for a little while, it was right, right every time, or left, left, like
Yeah.
each time you did it both
No,
times.
it's like when you're about to. That's why like that's good, but like our school, there's a bunch of pathways in the same like on the left, on the right. Like there's just a bunch of them. So like if I'm like 20 feet from the path I want to go, I could be like left, 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 left. So she like starts to know, okay, turn left when I see the next opening. Um, but this is like really cool. This is it's really hard when you first get the dog, and they don't. There's a bunch of downsides, but also upsides to getting a guide dog. One of the good things is that they pattern really well. They're creatures that can pattern. So, Candy, we've been on campus here for about almost a whole year, whole school year, and she's short. Like she knows some routes already because she's patterned. She knows like okay, I have to go this way. The only thing is that we have a class every 4 weeks. Sometimes I have to break the pattern, and that's hard. That's again that goes back to the knowing orientation. I need to know. I need to know where I'm going because if she keeps patterning, that's probably not a word. Anyway, patterning that I have to break it, and especially if there's distractions. Candy is extremely playful, extremely curious. So there's squirrels, there's wildlife all over this campus. She's distracted. I need to know. I need to know.
We're in
I
Florida, by the way, for those that don't know.
Oh, we're in
So there's
Florida,
like
so there's
iguanas too.
everything.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's oh my god, there's so many animals. But she gets distracted, and I need to know, like, okay, is she on point? Am I on point? That's why you need to know your orientation. That's why it's so important. Because she could be like, oh, like get the smell of like something on the left, and she goes the wrong way. Like it's up to me to know. Okay, no, she's going the wrong way. Like I need to know that. So that goes back to the orientation stuff. Um, yeah, yeah, it's yeah. There's upsides, and also like, um, they teach us inside, outside. So I could go like if I'm near a door, go inside, inside, and she'll go inside. They also had that one of the main lectures they had in the beginning was, how you say things, your tone. Like your dogs know it doesn't matter what you say; it just has to be with your tone. And I remember my friend Sophie. We were in the bathroom and we were with Candy, and she was like, "Oh my gosh, I wonder if I like say it this way, that her tail will start wagging." I'm like, "That's literally what they teach us. Like that's the way you say it." So lectures like that, it's interesting. Um, yeah, there's downsides when you want to trail something, you can't. My dog can't do that. Um, but it's also like, and I remember, I think we talked about this too one time, that I remember I was sitting next to one of the guys I met at the St. I. He was a student and he had a dog. I think he was going on his second dog, and he was like, my dog passed away, and I had to go back to the cane, and it was the worst thing ever. And I was like, oh, that's interesting. Like it's sort of like the cane just doesn't, once you're with the dog. And I remember, and Kaylin and I, we actually went to go do something the other day, and I used my cane, and I had to leave Candy. Um, and I was like, I feel like I don't even know how to use this anymore, but I do.
So Brie went over her experience with going to guide dog school, and she has a guide dog now. I have a
Yay.
bit of a different experience. And so I have been blind since birth. So when I was a teenager, I was looking into getting a guide dog. I applied first at, I believe, 13, and I got denied because I had too much vision, and that school wasn't willing to work with that. So then I had to wait. That school was out of the country. So then I had to wait until I was 16 to apply to a couple schools within the country. So a lot of them have an 18 age limit, but some of them will take 16. So I applied to that school, one of them, and I got in. So I waited after the whole process of getting in. I also went to a camp where we were able to get a lot of the lectures. We were able to walk with dogs and kind of find out what it was going to be like before we really made that final decision. That was very helpful, and I made friends there who both got guide dogs. I waited, once I got accepted, I waited like 3 years, I think, with that school. Um, and I applied during COVID. So
Oh
during
yeah.
that time, they were behind on dogs, obviously, and it was a lot harder to accommodate getting people matched. So they had a big backlog, and when I came to Lynn, I realized that I could no longer go with the school because they required that you go for like 3 or 4 weeks. And like Bree said, we have a block schedule where each of our classes are 4 weeks long. So I can't do that. The only time that I could do was over the summer, and they couldn't promise me that. And it was really hard because every month they would call in a new class. And I was on like the Facebook page and everything. So every month, certain people would be like, I got the call, I
Oh my
got in, I got
gosh.
my dog. Like everybody was so excited. And so I would wait month after month for like 3 years, hoping that I would get a call. And I didn't, and it like broke my heart every time. I couldn't
Yeah.
do it anymore. I was like, I can't take this. And it also just didn't work with the schedule that we have here at the university. So I ended up withdrawing from that school. The interesting thing, so like, it also depends on your lifestyle because
Yeah.
now I'm trying to maybe look into other schools now that I'm finishing up here at Lynn. And it's difficult because I'm moving and I'm probably going to be moving a couple times within the next year. I think it's like 3 times in the next couple months. So you can't do that if you're applying to a school because you
Yeah.
need to have a stable home environment for them to come evaluate. So it's also hard if you have a lifestyle where you're on the move, then it's really hard to accommodate that and to get a dog. So there are all kinds of circumstances. I think a lot of people think you're blind, this is so easily accessible to you,
Yeah.
when really there are hoops to jump through, and not every person can logistically do that and make that work with their lifestyle.
Yeah.
So it's definitely something too that depends on the circumstances for each individual.
Yeah, cause I know someone that is blind, and she was like, cause I told her, oh, I'm going to the Seeing Eye, and she was like, oh my gosh, that's so great. She's like, I sort of want one, but I sort of don't. And she's saying it doesn't fit her lifestyle because she's at home, then she goes to work, and then she's at school, and then she comes back. Like there's not. And a lot of people do this where they get guide dogs and they don't use it, and then it loses all its training, and that's just not good.
Yeah.
Um,
Sorry.
it's just sad.
The other interesting thing is routes too. So you have to live somewhere
Yeah,
that has that easy accessibility to routes. And when I was applying for my first guide dog, it was easy because I lived in a small town. So I knew my way to church, to school, to the gas station. Like I knew my way all around that place. Here, we're at a university and we're kind of a little more secluded. And where
yeah,
I'm going to be living is in more of a like suburban area. So it's a little far out from everything. So everything's going to be like a 40-minute walk.
yeah,
And especially in like the Florida heat, you don't always want to make that. So it's really hard to get a route. And if you're like changing schools or changing work environments, you're not going to have those stable routes to even show the school, I can do this, which is
yeah,
also difficult. So there's a lot going into it that can actually hinder somebody from making that decision.
Yeah. Yeah, and that's why there's different components. It's just such a complex um, system because there's so many factors that go into it, and it's all just your own personal decision, your own lifestyle, that kind of thing. It just and I knew like I think one of the first time or when I went to the Sing Eye, they're like, Do you think you're like really ready?" And I was like, "Yeah, I'm in college. I'm. It's not like I'm just." It's not like I go to work and I just don't walk. Like I walk to class every day. So I'm like, yeah, it's my time. Um, and so, and I think, do you think you waited? I guess you waited so long because they didn't have a match. And that's what's so difficult.
Yeah.
Yeah,
They didn't have
sometimes
a
you
match,
just
or
don't.
just sometimes like things like the pandemic come up and they
Yeah,
don't have as many dogs to give out, and so oftentimes they'll prioritize people who are on their second or third or
yeah,
fifth dog because they need them more.
yeah.
So it also depends on what they have available.
Yeah, and I also remember like when I was talking to one of the older girls, I was getting I think maybe her second dog at the school. I was sort of like talking with her, and I was like, I almost feel like it's harder for you because you sort of have to unlearn than learn 'cause all dog. That's why and I remember when I was like like just started being blind and I didn't understand the guide dog situation that I was like, oh, you have to go back and do the whole thing again. Like after, if you get another dog, you have to go back and start over and do training and live there and all that stuff. She's like, yeah, it's a different dog. It's different, has different personalities, different styles, all that stuff, sort of stuff. And so I was like, you sort of have to unlearn from the old dog and redo it. And I think there's a lot of questions I get is, okay, what do you do with the dog if she sort of like slows down and all that stuff? And I was like, oh, I have to retire her. And that's why I was saying that the components with different schools and your own personal preference is that some schools, I think you have to give the dog back when you retire it. Some schools will like tell you to retire it even when you don't want to. Um, yeah, so that kind of thing. But one Candy sort of starts to slow down. I start to see that she's getting older. She's not really working as well. That kind of thing. Um, I'll retire her, and then after that, she'll be just a regular dog. She'll be a pet. She won't be, a service animal anymore. She can't guide me. So then after that would be my decision to if I want to go back and get another dog or whatever I want to do. Um, so that's that. So like some dogs, you have to give the dog back. Actually, I want to share this because I think it's really interesting. When I went to the St. Eye, there was a trainer. She worked for a different guide dog school, and she worked at a different guide dog school, and she was saying that I think someone had a guide dog. They went back home after they graduated, went to the school, whatever. They went back home and then they were visited. They had like a yearly checkup, something like that. And so a trainer went down to I guess train with them a little bit, and just do a check in. And then the dog they saw that was like gaining weight, and so they're like, okay, you have to like it has to lose weight. And the next time I think it like still wasn't losing weight, and they were like, okay, we're taking the dog. And then that's just to me. I'm like, oh my gosh. They took the dog, and then they made it lose weight, whatever, and then they give it back to the person, and then after that, I think again they came back and was like, she's still like it gained weight again, something like that, and then they took it like for good, and I was like, that's crazy. They just took the dog. No, that's why I went to the sing high. So I get 100% ownership. I just no. Mm. I know you had a story about something with the vet with some girl, right?
Yeah, there was a school, I believe, they got sued over it, that they took the dog because there were like not updated vet records, but the lady was taking the dog to the vet. It just like she forgot to notify the school that she switched vets, so there wasn't the records. And yeah, I mean, different people, like that's why we were saying it's important to look into the schools, because
Yeah,
some people are not okay with the schools having ownership, some people are perfectly fine with it. It really depends on who you are and what your needs are. One
yeah,
of the perks of having a school have ownership is usually those schools will help provide for vet bills,
Yeah.
food bills, all of that. So it's better if a dog is going to be a financial burden.
Yeah. That's why there's different preferences for everyone. So, yeah. So different schools do different things like we were saying before. It's just all personal preference. It really just depends what you want, what you need, different things. Like one of the big things for me, like I said, was the reinforcement. Some are the vet bills, the financial part, all that kind of stuff. But one of the big things that is highly, I feel like Kaylin gets really annoyed with this, but highly misunderstood that people don't know um, is that I got my dog from the seeing eye. She is labeled a seeing eye dog. Some people say you go into it.
Yeah.
Kaylin's more passionate about the subject.
A lot of people just call guide dogs in general seeing eye dogs, and they're not all from the seeing eye. Like, I don't think they realize the seeing
Yeah,
eye is, I believe they're the oldest guide dog school in
they are.
America.
They're the first one.
Yeah. So people just kind of started adopting that term seeing eye dog when
Yeah,
really it's guide dog and seeing eye dogs are just a specific variety of
yeah.
guide dogs. There are plenty of other guide dog
Seeing eye
schools
is
out there.
totally like trademark. Like that's the seeing eye is a whole brand or
Yeah.
whole label, whatever you call it.
Yeah.
It's not just a term you could just pass on and just say like seeing eye. It's so funny because I Candy's harness and her like little book bag situation and her leash all say seeing eye, like everything. Like it's just completely sponsored by the seeing eye.
Yeah. I mean, there's other dogs too. Like there's freedom dogs and
Yeah,
pilot dogs, and like there's all these different brands of guide dogs.
yeah. I think one thing, just really fast, I think is really interesting is I know we talked a little bit about it that some dogs when they graduate the training, but then they start training with the actual individual, but then it just doesn't work out. That I told my parents this and they started laughing, but that some dogs have a career change. Yes, they do. So some dogs that are unable to do the guide dog purpose and all that stuff and guide someone who is visually impaired or blind will do a career change. And they were saying, I think they said like 5%, but I don't know if that's just the seeing eye. But like some of them, if it's like if it's German Shepherd and it's super energetic and all that kind of stuff, and it can't do the seeing or the guide dog purposes, they'll go to like what is it, like the police force or the police academy, whatever you call it.
I think a
Um,
lot of them go to be like detection dogs.
Yeah,
Yeah.
like you do different things. So that's why I think that's so. I was like, oh, that's interesting. They're like some dogs really can't do it, and especially some dogs just don't graduate. Some dogs graduate, like I said, and then just can't do the purpose. Like they get too scared, and they freak out, and they can't do it. They get too anxious. Um, I don't know where I heard this, but I always thought that the dog had to be two when you get the dog. But then I got Candy, and I remember I was talking to one of my friends, Tyler, at the St. Eye. He's like a year younger than me, and we're really close. We were just talking about it, and I was like, "Oh, how old is your dog?" And that's like the thing that they did at the St. Eye. They didn't tell us like her age, the birthday, the weight, all this stuff. So like the second week, like they like I don't know, just continuously gave you information slowly. I was, it's just the whole time. It was like, oh my gosh. And I think one of my trainers explained it perfectly. She's like, someone said this thing, or gets Sky Dark School. Sometimes it's like boot camp and a resort at the same time. And it's so true because we are just being like fed by like it's just all, everyone's paying for us, that whole thing. And then it's boot camp because we have to get up at 5:30 in the morning. Anywho,
Well,
like
and
I
I
was
think
saying,
it was interesting too. You told me so you guys have to like get up at 5 a.m. to take the dog out to the
yeah,
park.
some dogs don't do
I
that, or some guide
some
dogs.
schools like too because I went where I went for the camp and all that, and where I was enrolled, they had a patio attached to the room. So all you
Oh,
had to
that would
do
be
in the morning
nice.
was just walk out to your patio and like open the
Oh,
sliding glass door, and there you go.
oh, I wish. No, they did not. And I know some dog or some people have that like preference where they wouldn't let the dogs on the bed, which I totally understand. It's that place. I'm not gonna get Candy on the bed. But sometimes I was so tired. After 'cause we would have at 7 was breakfast, so we had like a whole like hour and a half. And I was so tired that I would try to go back to sleep, and I want to hang out with Candy. And Candy's super energetic in the morning. So I was talking to Tyler, and I was just like, "What do you do?" Because I'm exhausted. And he's like, "I put a pillow on the floor and I lay with Blitz, who's his dog." Um, yeah, so that's what I did. But some do a career change. Super interesting. Some dogs just can't do it. Oh, but that's what I was saying. I was talking to Tyler, and I was like, "Oh, how old's your dog?" And he was like, "Oh, I think he's like 2." And I was like, "Oh, so is Candy." And he's like, "When's her birthday?" And I was like, "Oh, November 11th, 2023." And he's like, "She's not 2. I mean, now she's 2, but back then he's like, she's a year and 7 months." And I was like, "Oh, she is." And I that was interesting. So I was like, "Oh." And that's the thing. Like a lot of, I think 3 years is like the cutoff for a guide dog when they have to graduate. So some dogs were older. Some dogs were 3. Some dogs were, a year. It was different, and it was all because like the time they had to graduate. Like they were saying, Blitz was saying, Tyler and I, we messed with each other, and I was like, "Oh, my dog's smarter because your dog took forever," and he's like, "No, Blitz only took forever because he was afraid of escalators." So it was a rough time for him. So that's why he graduated like at 2 or 2 years and a half. I don't know, something like that. So that was interesting. And also, one more story 'cause it's really funny. Um, when I was at the Sing Eye, they finally gave us, but they gave it to us like individually. Like I would think I was in the car. This is like towards the end. They do like personal preference, but a little bit before that, like I think the second week, you sort of like do individually. Like they drive you to a place individually, like just you, not the whole group. And they were like, "Okay, so your dog is 45 pounds, and her birthday's November." At first, they told me November, I think like 13th. And I was like, "Okay." And then I was talking to like Candy's siblings, and we like all were sort of like passing each other. And one was like, "Oh, November 11th, right?" And I was like, "No, the 13th." I was like, "Okay, I have to go to someone else, Candy's other siblings, like parent, and be like, okay, when's the birthday?" They're like, the 11th. I'm like, "Who told me it was the 13th then?" So it was like a whole thing. So I was like, "Wait, are they related?" And I was like, yeah, they're related. Why are they not the same birthday?" Anyway, that was the whole thing. I went to my trainer. She's like, "Oh yeah, sorry, I made a mistake. It's the 11th." Like, thank you. That was a fun time. But yeah, and they do like my school did like a coming back home situation, and oh my god, it was so hard when I first got Candy. They were like, "Okay, when you go home, don't." Like I remember it was like right before 4th of July, and I was like, "What do I do? I'm going like somewhere with my family," and they're like, "Tell your family to ignore her." And I was like, "Are you that?" I was like, "You're funny," and they're like, "No, seriously," and I was like, "That's crazy," but it's totally because in the beginning. I have to be or not the beginning, but the whole time, I have to be Candy's like number one favorite, and that was another thing. That's another situation where someone gets too close to the dog, like feeds her, like under, like no, she needs to listen to me at the end of the day. Like she needs to know, okay, this is my mom. I have to listen to her. Um, so that's when in the beginning, since we were still bonding, like no one could really interact with her. And oh my god, my dad was like, "Can I please hug her? Can I play with her?" And I was like, "No." I was like, "No. I already told you it doesn't work like that." And he's like, "Please, just once." And I was like, "No." And I was like, "Dad, when you can, you'll be the first one to play with her." And oh my gosh, it was rough. But like now it's a little easier because they were connected, and they were saying that it takes 6 months to a year to fully connect with your dog. Have you heard of that? That's crazy. Which makes sense, but I never would have thought about that. Yeah, so that's that. So we're gonna do part two because there's a lot of information about this, and we'll go a little bit more into the legal stuff, the etiquette, that kind of things. Big, that's a big issue.
There's a
Yeah,
lot to talk about here.
there really is. Yeah, I hope that this was educational. Hope it was a little bit, yeah. I know it was a lot of me talking, which, anyhow. Any last minute comments, Kaylynn?
Hmm?
Any last minute comments
I don't think so.
for the world?
I think I'm good.
By the way, Kaylynn's your redhead now. Just saying.
fading, but I'll do it again.
So, anyhow, well, thank you for watching, and yeah, bye. See you next time.
Bye.